has captured Captain Keyes and are holding him aboard one of their cruisers, the Truth and Reconciliation. The ship is currently holding position approximately 300 meters above the other end of this plateau.
So how do we get inside the ship if it's in the air? The Corps issued me a rifle, not wings.
There's a gravity lift that ferries troops and supplies between the ship and the surface. That's our ticket in.
Once we get inside the ship, I should be able to lock on to the tracking signal from Captain Keyes' neural implants.
Hit 'em, Marines! Go, go, go! The Corps ain't paying us by the hour!
Stick to the higher ground to the right. We should be able to recon the Covenant position without being spotted. I've detected Covenant stationary guns near the next pass. I recommend using your sniper rifle to take out the gunners while I call for Marine support.
Get ready to move in to support us, Sergeant. The Master Chief is going to covertly take out as many of the Covenant as he can. Don't open fire until you hear the enemy return fire on us. That should let us keep the element of surprise.
Kind of awkwardly and impatiently waiting for Cortana to shut her purple trap. Welcome back to Cooperative Conversations for Halo 1. We are going to assault that spaceship. It's big.
I mean, you know, it's a cool looking spaceship. Get used to looking at it.
Yeah. Nice and swooshy, not many angles.
Very round.
Yeah.
Also, hey, that's what the night vision on the scope was for.
Nighttime. Yeah, it is nighttime, and I think it's time to address nighttime on Halo.
Yeah.
So, from here we can see that nighttime is caused by the shadow cast by this planet onto a section of the ring. Which is interesting, because of course we're not in orbit around something in the center of us. We are placed in orbit like another sort of celestial body. Don't think it would work that way. But, you know, I've only read Ringworld a half dozen times. Who am I to say? But speaking of Ringworld, the way Ringworld did shadows was actually really cool and really interesting. Because if you remember from the first episode, the little introduction there, the Ringworld orbits a sun. It is built with a sun in its center. And around that sun, closer to it, are what's called shadow squares. And the shadow squares are in front of the sun, and as the Ringworld rotates, the shadows cast by them create an artificial day-night cycle. This here seems like it would give a very brief sort of twilight and dusk, but you can't say for sure. It looks like a pretty harsh shadow. So it potentially serves the same purpose of instant transition to daylight and then nighttime. But that's just conjecture. You've read like some of these books. Does Bungie ever give us any information like that?
I mean, Bungie don't. The mechanics of the actual ring itself are never really delved into. But that ties back to a point I've made before, which is that it's style over substance, right? We're on a giant ring because that's cool and mysterious, whereas Ringworld was a thought exercise. Yeah,
Ringworld is first and foremost a science fiction adventure story, but Larry Niven was known to get into the hard science every now and then, which definitely more of a fantastical sort of writer, but when he got into the hard science, he got into it, and so much, I got robbed, so much so that when fans of the first book criticized the physics of the Ringworld, saying that it would be unstable on its own axis and that it would wobble, he wrote a second book explaining just why that wasn't the case. Which is delightfully petty.
It's amazing.
But it also, because it's an adventure story, it's just more of the stuff you like.
I do like strange alien cultures, obscenely large expanses of land, horrible, terrible eugenics-driven. Oh, well, he's dead. Let's play over, people. Oh no, wait, there he is.
Made it. Oh, my sniper rifle almost fell off the cliff. We need that for later.
Yeah, I should stop using my ammo for it.
Yeah, I will always recommend Ringworld to people, and not just because in a, like, oh, so you like Halo, huh? Well, read Ringworld, and... No, it's a good book. And if you like Halo, you will probably get a lot out of Ringworld, because you will... Whoa, there's a lot going on here. You'll get to see the setting of Halo, if I dare blaspheme to call it that before Ringworld. And you'll get to see, as Skullsor said, a lot of the thought exercises that went into the creation of something like this that Bungie does not touch upon. Here's a thought exercise for you. Why are these lights here?
Well, you see they were pre-placed by... Wait a second.
What's this illuminating? Is it so these plants can grow?
It's to create an atmospheric visual. The Covenant, if anything, are all about their aesthetics.
Oh, they are.
They really are.
Purple and swooshy. It's a good look.
I mean, can you honestly tell me that the Needler has the ammunition sticking out at the top of it for any kind of practical purpose?
Oh, probably not.
Because it looks cool, reckon. And the Covenant know it.
So, yeah, right, we're here to rescue Captain Keyes. That's
correct.
right.
With this full squad of armored and equipped Marines, a sniper rifle, we dropped off like we were fully geared up, and we're going to rendezvous with other Marines later. Cortana said so.
Yeah. It's like we have a
That's
plan.
Interesting. Not just a plan, it's almost like we're operating out of some kind of forward operating base that was assembled from the survivors.
Yeah.
If only there was some sort of, thing that conveyed that.
If we ever, perhaps...
wait, reckon. In the supplemental material.
Oh yeah, tell me all about the comic where I can learn about the FOB they set up.
Well, actually, no. I'm going to tell you all about the book, Halo First Strike.
Oh boy.
Which actually is basically a retelling of this game,
Ow.
right? Halo First Strike is effectively a novelization of this game, and they actually, the author, whose name escapes me right now, I apologize, throw up the cover of the book.
Here it is.
He actually went to great pains to sort of like justify the military operations conducted on the ring. So he actually does let you know that yes, the scattered Marines assembled together and set up an FOB. Which, by the way, you actually get some really cool chapters where a Covenant, like, elite stealth team are trying to, like, infiltrate it to take out the humans.
Wow, that sounds like it could have been a really interesting mission in the game. Maybe in the latter half.
Yep. It's a shame there's nothing like that in this game. So, we've got a lot to talk about. I would like to circle back to a point I brought up in the previous episode, but did not get to finish on because we had to discuss other things. Controls. So, Halo 1, on the original Xbox, when it released, had a control scheme that was, while not original, novel. The concept of using one analog stick to move and the other analog stick to control your camera, your aiming, was not generally the done thing in FPS games at that point on consoles. They had always used the sort of like pseudo tank vehicle controls of like one stick you move forward and turn left and right, and then the other one strafes and pans up and down. Which I'm assuming is some sort of holdover from like
We're directly under the ship
actual
now.
movie camera controls or
The
something.
Covenant use a gravity lift.
Oh, I'm not sure myself. I actually didn't have much console experience until the Xbox 360 came out.
Fair enough. Understandable. But yeah, the control scheme for Halo was actually quite novel when it first released.
Oh, that I
It was,
do know.
Yeah.
Of course, it did first appear in Alien Resurrection for the PlayStation 1.
Famous. There's a famous quote from a review where a critic is just
The most terrifying thing about it is not the aliens, but its control scheme, etc., etc. Here it is on screen.
It's pretty good.
So we saw overshields earlier back in the first episode on the Pillar of Autumn and the Covenant boarding crafts. This is invisibility.
Nothing about its appearance indicates that. You got to pick it up to find out.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. I don't really care.
Well, once you pick it up, you know, hey, pyramid with blue circle, invisibility.
Yeah, it's definitely good iconography.
Yeah, it's a bit of fun.
It doesn't really work against
No.
AI.
On lower difficulties it does, but yeah. But just to cap off my point, I think a big factor in the like groundbreaking that Halo 1 did, if you want to call it that, is that its control scheme certainly made FPS games much more approachable and doable on a console.
Yes.
And I think that definitely did help set it apart. So, props to Bungie. They seem to know what was up because it became the standard going forward. Like many of the things in Halo. Hey, do we want to talk about Halo ruining the video game industry again?
Oh,
we haven't done that
let's.
for a while. So, other video games, yeah? Especially first-person shooters that came out after Halo. They sure did love to borrow mechanics from Halo.
Yeah, regenerating health is, of course, the big one, and we discussed it in the first episode with the way it lets combat flow a little more freely. But this is a mistake. Oh, a mistake. This is a direction that even Halo 2 onward would take, which is the removal of health packs entirely for the introduction of just simply regenerating resource, health and shield at once.
Which, you know, would then famously become a staple of the Call of Duty series, which has some...
Oh no, I've died.
Oh dear. Call of Duty has some just horrendous encounter design because they know that they can just throw enemies at you and, yeah, your health will regenerate.
Regenerating health eliminated the need for encounter planning. You never have to...
really hurt pacing as well.
Yeah, you never have to think hard about how a player is going to do something. Because you know, well, they're going to have 100% health anytime they want. Where is my sniper rifle? I need that. Yeah, okay, there it is. It is underneath the shade turret.
So, but speaking of Call of Duty, it also famously, Modern Warfare 2 stole the plasma grenade.
Yes,
in
the Semtex grenade.
Yeah. Which, it was a pretty cute justification for having a sticky grenade.
Yeah.
The 2-weapon limit, obviously.
Yep, that's absolutely a console concession, and the adoption of the weapon wheel would not really take off. I know the first time... The earliest I can say I know it was in a console game was Beyond Good and Evil. But
I never played that, so...
I've not either. I mean, I just said I wasn't really a console person. But that did use a weapon wheel. and it's well implemented. It really is. But yeah, it's not really something that caught on. People preferred, developers preferred, just tapping a button to switch between your two weapons. And again, like, while Halo did it pretty well in, you know, creating different kinds of weapons with like limited ammo, limited batteries for these energy weapons, and making you think about the combat encounters, modern military shooters don't really have aliens with energy shields or directional shields that can be broken with certain weapons.
Yeah,
they have guys with hit scan weapons. So the two weapon limit becomes, do you want a gun that shoots like pew 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 pew, or a gun that shoots like pew 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 pew? And it removes their adoption of it, removed the point of it by not introducing interesting things. And speaking of introducing interesting things, here we have the fourth and final Covenant enemy of the game. It's the Hunters. They're big, they're scary, they have laser artillery cannons.
They're bulletproof.
They're bulletproof? Oh my god, shit bounces off them, or it will in the later games. They just shrug it off in this one. But you know what's funny? They have this weak point, and it's a really good weak point, because they're just dead.
I'm having trouble hitting mine. Hang on.
Man, if you want to talk about borrowing from Aliens, this music. There you go, good work. Hunters go down in a single pistol shot to their back on every difficulty.
Which I believe is a bug that was left in.
Yeah.
Once we're inside the ship, I can home in on the captain's command neural.
So here's that rendezvous with
We'll
those
probably
Marines.
be in or near the ship's brig.
Yeah.
Which should narrow our search.
Weird, I kind of thought we'd be fighting our way to some sort of encampment, but...
But yeah, the Hunters are actually... They're another one of those things that sort of became iconic. They're a pretty cool enemy. They're
pretty cool. Halo 1 overuses them. And this is where Halo 2's introduction of a couple key enemies really makes the game flow a lot better, because the Hunters exist here as like a mini-boss encounter to cap off this big arena we had. And that's cool. We're gonna fight two more as soon as we get up there. We're gonna fight them in groups of two from now until the end of the game, just at random. We're never gonna stop fighting the Hunters. Halo 2 introduces some enemies that create that mini-boss encounter thing much better, and it means they can save the Hunters for, like, bigger moments.
Well, we talked about rush development, right? This stage is actually, like... There's a few stages after, but, like, we're approaching the point where you can tell they sort of had to it was like, just finish it and ship it, right?
Yeah,
because...
which... It's unfortunate, because we're on level 3.
Yeah. So, here's something rare, a mid-mission cutscene.
Yes, let's take a look. There we go. Purple.
We're in. I've got a good lock on the captain's CNI transponder. No Covenant defenses detected.
What? There's no Covenant here. I think maybe nobody's home.
And there we are. Oh!
Oh, what's that?
Look out!
It's an invisible man with a blue laser blade.
Oh, maybe I can pick up that sword and... Oh, wait.
Oh, did it just disappear into the ether?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame.
It's almost like it's some sort of unfinished weapon.
Yeah, there are 3 of those in the game. 2 of them are wielded against you, and 1 was finished, quote, for the PC multiplayer release. Those are the fuel rod gun and the flamethrower. Fuel rod gun we'll see much later in the game. Well, technically the hunters have it, but we'll see enemies wielding it much later in the game. The flamethrower does not appear in the campaign, and obviously these elites have the energy sword.
Speaking of cut content due to the constrained development of Halo, hey, check out this thing.
Oh yeah.
Now what the hell do you suppose this thing is?
Well, what's interesting is, so this is a Wraith. Spoilers. It is a Covenant vehicle. It's interesting that we see this because we don't see a Covenant Wraith be deployed against us for quite some time. We actually get their lighter single-person infantry craft against us before that, but we see the Wraith first. So we have, like, no context. We've seen 2 vehicles in the game so far. The
3
Banshee.
if you count the dropship.
Well, yeah, the Banshee and the Warthog. Oh look, those hunters I was talking about. So while
Did
we...
you bring a pistol?
no, but I still have my sniper rifle. So
Excellent.
while we snipe these guys into an easy death... so we're talking about enemy variety. And I've said these are the 4th and final. And this gets back into the palette swap thing, right? Do you consider the red elites different from the blue elites?
So in this game, no. Absolutely not. They got a little better in later games because they made the color and armor that elites are wearing dictate what kind of combat strategies they use.
Yeah.
But in this game, they are effectively the same enemy.
Yeah, in this game, red elites and blue elites both use a plasma rifle. Because there are only 3 Covenant weapons, and 2 more that are reserved for special units, like we saw here, the Invisible. Are these white elites? Are they light blue? Someone's gonna yell at me for not knowing. They're
Like,
they're
the bodies
sword
have disappeared at
elites.
this point, so...
Yeah.
Oh, no, here's one.
Oh yeah. They're white. Like,
I'd say they're white.
effectively?
They're white in the later games.
Yeah.
But yes, that's the whole thing. Also, you missed it here because I picked it up in the fight there, but there's an invisibility pickup by these bodies.
Yes, I
that are
did see
behind
that
the
you
screen.
were invisible.
So that's sort of like, oh, these guys, that's what the invisibility pickup is. It's how these guys cloak. Which is funny because later games.
Yeah.
But hey,
But-
the interior of this spaceship, huh?
Yeah, it's a little blockier than the exterior would have suggested, but I guess, effective space use.
There's some contours. The walls bulge. You got some round bits here or there. Sometimes. 90-degree angles.
Yeah, now we get into everybody contracted the same architect. But you know what? Let's talk about that sword elite a little more. So
Right.
the sword elite is still an elite. He's
Yep.
not a different kind of alien.
No.
Are they effectively different enemies more so than the red and blue? Yes.
Absolutely.
However, I would argue they're still elites, right? They move the same, they have the same tactics. Obviously one has a sword, so he'll try to get in melee combat with you.
Mm-hmm.
But Halo 1 is lacking in enemy variety, and it's going to become very apparent very soon.
But, you know, that's, again, we've mentioned that it becomes remedied later, but that's not relevant to this game. But hey, what is relevant to this game, the games industry as a whole, is another chapter in the ongoing series of Halo ruined video games.
Oh boy.
So those sword elites, as you mentioned, they try to get into melee combat with you. But that's not exclusive to them. The regular elites can still try and bash your head in.
Yes.
And that is something that Halo entrenched into FPS design, and that is melee attacks that are easily and quickly accessible, and often highly fatal.
Yes. Halo basically introduced and put forward the idea of 2 melee kills from the front, 1 from the back.
The assassination, as it became known as later.
Yeah. And you can say what you want about Counter-Strike, whatever. The knife was still a disparate weapon.
Yeah,
Halo, you punch.
Melee weapons in video games up to Halo had varying degrees of effectiveness, but they were often their own separate slot or equip that you had to consciously take out and use.
Yes.
Whereas Halo was, I won't say unique, I'm sure there were games before that tried it. But yeah, you just got a button, you press it, bam, you hit someone with the bad end of your rifle. You know, the wrong end.
Works well enough.
Yeah.
You know, speaking of bad ends, wrong ends, we sure are going through a lot of right-angled corridors with nothing. Like, okay, so here's something. Let's talk about Unreal again. Unreal made a lot of efforts to make locations feel believable. They... Oh, this blue elite is using a needler. Look at that. He's dead now. This one is not using a needler. Your Nali temples had places of worship. They had little cells where people would sleep, where the monks would sleep. You had, you know, dining halls, you had kitchens, you had animal pens. In the SCAR facilities, you had, you know, energy control rooms. Hell, you had toilets.
In the Nali temples, you had areas where the Scar had, you know, busted in, trashed the place, and crucified Nali.
Yes, stolen relics and tortured the populace. Halo has hallways.
Oh boy, does it have hallways.
And this is our first... We got a little taste of it in Pillar of Autumn. This is our first indication that this is what the game is going to do to us. Halo has hallways. We go down a hallway. There's a door we can't go through. There's a door we can't go through. Well, let's go this way. Spaceships...
Is this a Silent Hill game?
Spaceships in media are an interesting beast, because you can argue we don't really have much to compare them to, because we don't have massive spaceships where people live. No, the ISS doesn't count, you say. And that's fair, we don't have large civilian transport spacefaring craft, but like, we have cruise liners. Cruise liners are fucking massive. If you've never been near a cruise liner, they are scary big.
It's amazing they can even move. They're like a city that floats. It's crazy.
We have military submarines and aircraft carriers. There is no wasted space in a seafaring vessel.
It takes a lot of metal to build an aircraft carrier.
So we are going around these giant areas that are just filled with walls? What's behind those walls? We don't know. It doesn't make this feel like a place. I don't feel like I'm on an alien spaceship trying to rescue Captain Keyes. I feel like I'm in a video game level that someone threw together. This is level design that has not evolved past Wolfenstein's. And even Doom evolved past Wolfenstein.
Now, there are people that might be watching at home that will be pointing out, but reckon, you're standing in a hangar right now. A hangar is context. A hangar is something you would find on a spaceship where they launch the landing craft and so on. And to that I would say, you got a point. They make an attempt. They add some areas, like there's a bridge eventually. Which remind me when we get to the bridge. I've got something for the supplemental material to mention.
Oh boy.
Anyway, they make an attempt at giving the interiors of the ships some context, but generally again, we talk about the physical relation between spaces, right? Are we going towards the front of the ship from the back to the front? Apparently when we boarded, we went up the middle, up the gravity shaft, right?
Yeah.
So, where are we on the ship right now? We're in a hangar. Okay. Where's that?
Well, it looks like it's near the side.
Yeah, okay. Well, we're on the side of the ship somewhere. So what were all those connective hallways that we ran through with all those doors? I'm pretty sure there was actually a door leading out to the right somewhere that would probably put you real close to the side of the ship.
Yeah. It's one of those things that you maybe don't think about it if you're not looking for it, but I've played enough games where it was taken into account that I'm looking for it. I'm always looking for it. I'm looking for an explanation in the environment for why is the environment, right?
Well, I know we don't want to bring up the other Halo games too much. I would actually like to point out, because it's fresh on my mind, in Halo Reach you bought a Covenant frigate.
Oh, it looks way different than this.
Yeah, and they actually do a very good job of giving you an idea of what the physical relationship of the areas is in the interior. And that's in the same series, right? Obviously, like, it's a later game, so they learn lessons about development and so on. They make a better game, right? And that's just it. Like, there was obviously a lot of room for improvement. And that's what we're kind of harping on here. It's like... And it's like, yeah, it's, you know, it's their first big release, right?
Well, that's the thing.
Also, yeah.
People try to excuse this because, like, oh, you know, Bungie weren't veteran developers. They made 3 games. In 2001, that made you a veteran.
Yeah, and on top of that, right, like, there's... Like, I don't know how to word, like, what the correct term is for it, but there's, like, the common wisdom of the genre, right? Like, the collected shared knowledge of game, like, design that builds up over the years as games come out.
Are you looking for the term the Zeitgeist?
The Zeitgeist, right? That's a good one.
The door is open.
Trademark that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, there are games that came out before Halo where you were in, like, spaceships or facilities or whatever that actually did a pretty respectable job of giving you an idea where you were on the spaceship. Cough, cough. Unreal. Cough, cough.
If anybody has not played System Shock 1, the original, or even System Shock 2, fantastic, like, level layout.
Oh, yes.
Even System Shock 1, when it gets its most, like, weird early to mid-90s labyrinthine design, each area still has a distinctive shape to it that you can get to know.
So, and that's the thing, right? And it's like, so yeah, this was their first big release, air quotes, right? You know, Marathon did well enough, considering it was Macintosh exclusive. But yeah, it's and they improve later on. But it's like, I don't know, was it the fact that you were constrained in development, that you had to rush the interiors, or was it just you weren't drawing from the common wisdom? We don't know. We could ask them. I don't know that we'd get the answers we want. But it's just something worth pointing out. Because again, these games are praised, and they do enough to deserve some of that praise.
Again,
but,
they are fun, but
yeah.
Halo 1 is rougher. Goodbye.
Bye.
Is rougher than something like this from a veteran developer in the year it came out. It's way rougher than it should have been by any rights. This does not reflect the experience Bungie had.
If you told me that this was Bungie's like first game, like actually the first game they made, I would be floored, right? Because it's got some rock solid ideas running through its veins. But I know better. I know that they put in a lot of work before this came out. So okay, there is something to their credit. By the way, talking about like the physical relations of places and so on and so on and so on. This ship is here, right?
Yeah.
This actually will be important later. So
it will be, and credit where credit's due. That's neat. We're going up the layers of this hangar.
Mm-hmm.
Why there isn't like stairs on a gantry?
Well, I actually have a question for you about this dropship, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, to get in it, you just jump?
I mean, yeah, it's like a little stairs, and you hang on.
I'm just like, there's a pretty...
Look, the Covenant are an alien species. We can't expect to understand their way of thinking, which is why they designed handheld weapons with triggers. And don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Well, you can worry about it if you follow the supplemental material.
Yep, I'm sure you can.
Oh, that bit's not going to get old for me anytime soon. I'm sorry to everyone watching.
I mean, it's not gonna get old for the people who are really in love with this game's lore.
Yeah. Look, I am one of those people. I like the supplemental material really did capture my imagination, more so than the games ever did.
And that's fair. I'm not saying that the existence of supplemental material is bad. I'm saying the reliance on it to tell what should be in the game is bad.
It's definitely no way to write.
I equated something else to this, but I'm gonna try to finagle the analogy on the fly here. It's like if you read Lord of the Rings, but you were reading it and you were like, I don't really understand who this Saruman guy is. He's like a wizard, I guess? Is he a wizard? Gandalf shows up and talks to him. And what has happened is that, well, you didn't read the Silmarillion.
Mm-hmm.
Because in this universe, the Silmarillion has all the parts where people talk about who Saruman is. So, imagine the already fractured lore of Lord of the Rings, with all its external sources and books, but without the book, The Lord of the Rings. So you try to read it, and you're like, I don't know what this is. And everyone's like, I swear, this is the best trilogy of fantasy books ever written. And you're like, I am told that Gimli is a character. And they're like, oh yeah, Gimli's great. There's this awesome part where he, like, fights a troll. And you're like, oh, did I miss that? Oh no, it's actually in Tales from the Ungwathan Crypt. Well, what's that?
Yeah.
It's a comic that J.R.R. Tolkien's grandnephew wrote. But how does that help me in the book I'm reading now? Well, you know, you just have to kind of sit back. It's a bullshit excuse.
It really is. I briefly mentioned this, and I'll circle back to it. I mentioned this at the start. Halo as a series... Oh, here we go, the bridge.
Yes.
Hold on, I'll finish that thought later. So
Sometimes
sleeping grunts.
Sometimes the grunts sleep. Remember when you caught the crawl mercenaries napping in their cells or like playing dice or whatever? This is kind of like that, except it's only the grunts, and it's only ever this. You can melee them for free.
And this is actually something that
believe
would
I've
recur.
been seeing, yeah.
This is something that would recur in the series. Enemies sleeping around, and you can try to like sort of pseudo stealth it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
So,
it's not bad.
Speaking of supplemental material, this bridge, right? So remember when I was talking about the physical... Oh no!
It's...
Remember when...
It's... Oh,
yeah.
did you die as well?
Yes, I did.
I'm very sorry about that.
So remember when I was talking about the physical relations of space, right? In the supplemental material, right? They actually state that the Covenant, all the bridges for their space cruisers are located in the dead center heart middle of the ship. Right?
Oh, away from all the windows that an enemy can target.
All the windows that would break and suck you out into space. And they rely on external cameras to spot and acquire visuals on things, right? This is stated in... I want to say it was in First Strike, but there was the other book, I think Fall of Reach, and there was the other one that was set after First Strike. But the point is that it's mentioned in one of the books,
Strike?
right?
Next strike, the second encounter.
Yeah, John Halo Strikes Back. But yeah, the point is that they totally say that the cockpits are in the dead center of the ship. So guess what? In the supplemental material, we are given context for our physical location.
Oh, wow. You know, if only we had someone who had intimate knowledge of Covenant, like, fleet formations and history, who was, like, some kind of navigational AI whose entire job it was to know things about the enemy, who currently lived inside of our head, who could make comments about this sort of stuff, and who we could respond to.
Like a character who functions as a narrative device to give exposition to the player.
Yes.
Huh, it's a shame there isn't anything like that in this game.
Yeah. That sounds pretty far-fetched for this universe. And this is something we've talked about before, but now we get to get into it. A lot of Halo's storytelling problems could be solved by single lines of dialogue sprinkled throughout various missions. Like, not even a lot. Not even giant sweeping conversations, but like, just imagine if Cortana said, "Ah, this must be the bridge. That's right. Covenant, you know, the Covenant put their bridges buried deep in the armor of their ships."
It would be good.
Then,
it would help give you context.
Then Mr. Chief could be like, that's interesting.
Not even that. He could even be like, "Oh, well, then the brig will be somewhere else because he's a super special forces man. He should know, right?" Like,
yeah.
It's just, you know. But that's the thing. Now I'm going to get to a point that I didn't get to finish before. Part of that problem is that Halo was literally written as it was being made.
Yes.
Because we know that it had a tumultuous development. The story and the lore of Halo is literally being assembled as we progress through the game.
By the seat of your shiny Mjolnir pants.
Like, Bungie might have had overarching ideas.
Oh, I found it.
Nice.
We braved the maze of identical right fucking angles.
There are probably multiple detention
But
stations.
yeah,
the captain must be in one of them. We need to keep looking for him.
Bungie might have had overarching ideas on, like, what was what. They like, oh, the Halo is some big weapon, and the Covenant want to use it, or something like that, right? I don't.
Well, we don't know that.
We don't. but that's the thing, is that they might have had overarching ideas, but absolutely the stories of these games were being put together as the game was being made, right?
Check it out.
I'm sure
The health pack of the level.
well, diegetic item placement. But yeah, it becomes more apparent as we'll move forward, that they sort of like ran out of ideas, or maybe they were rushed and they didn't have enough time to come up with more. Maybe they just couldn't realize ideas they already had. But the point is that we're very soon going to hit a point where they've run out of tricks, and the narrative just derails and crashes into the dirt.
It's very obvious when it happens. It's a heck of a thing, it really is.
And then when we eventually, progress past finish this game and play some of the other games, you're going to see that, oh boy, were they really riding by the seat of their pants.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if you heard that over there, but the subtitles said it. This man was about to say that we kicked the shit out of them, but he censored himself. He said, we kicked the This game is rated M.
Is it?
I have a conspiracy.
Oh yes? Please.
I'll tell you about it after we get keys.
Okay. Another mid-mission cutscene.
Coming here was reckless. You two know better than this. Thanks. Marines, lock and load your weapons. Let's be ready to move.
Yes, sir.
So remember when he was worried that Cortana would be captured and reveal information about
While the Covenant had us
human
locked
stuff?
up in here, I overheard the guards
I do.
talking about this ring world. They call it.
Oh, hey, he called it a ring world.
One
Title
moment,
drop.
sir. Accessing the Covenant BattleNet. According to the data in their networks, the ring has some kind of deep religious significance. If I'm analyzing this correctly, they believe that Halo is some kind of weapon. One with
Interesting.
vast, unimaginable power.
They believe it's a weapon.
Hmm.
In the
Weapon.
first game.
Whoever controls Halo controls
Yeah.
the universe.
Now I see. I have intercepted
Remember when
a
I said they
number
were
of
riding by the
messages
seat of
about
their
a Covenant
pants?
search team
Yeah.
scouting for a control room. I thought they were looking for the bridge of a cruiser that I damaged during the battle above the ring. But they must be looking for Halo's control room.
That's bad news. If Halo is a weapon, and the Covenant gain control of it, they'll use it against us and wipe out the entire human race.
How do you know it'll do that?
Chief, Cortana,
Yeah, that's a big leap to make.
we need
I
What
mean,
if-
it's a weapon. How do you know it could wipe out the whole race?
Marines.
What if it's like just a point defense system?
What if its weapon function is to land on the surface of a planet and roll around crushing things? You don't know. Insert the clip from Invader
Head
Zim.
back to the shuttle bay and call for evac.
So, I have a conspiracy about Halo's M rating.
Alright, lay it on me.
So, we've already said that I don't think this game would have sold well if it was released on PC. I also don't really think it would have sold as well as it did at the time on Xbox if it wasn't rated M.
Huh. And why would that be the case?
M ratings carry a certain appeal for the younger crowd, and what's interesting about the younger crowd is that when the Xbox came out, it came out with the PS2 and the GameCube, consoles were still in the phase of being seen as mostly children's toys.
Which has never been a fair distinction, but has absolutely been something that they just tar consoles with.
Yes. Now, the thing about Halo is that it's not particularly bloody. Like, people bleed.
No.
Here's some blood. Oh no, it's blood.
We can actually help demonstrate your point beautifully here. So dead bodies, you smack them. Oh look, blood comes out.
Yeah.
Alien blood.
But the blood is purple and blue and later green. And that's there is red blood for humans, but you don't see a lot of it.
There's red blood over here.
Yeah.
And
but-
hey, here's an interesting thing. I bash a dead body, blood comes out. I bash a human dead body,
Yeah.
the amount of blood does not increase.
Yeah, no blood. It's interesting.
So you can't make more human blood, but you can... Look, if I go over to this grunt here, just to further illustrate my point. Look at that.
That's some blood. And what's interesting also is there's no dismemberment of any kind. There are no jibs.
Nope.
There's no cursing. You know, somebody said bastard earlier, but that guy couldn't say shit. You get TV-14 levels of cursing.
Levels of cursing that you could get away with in something with, say, a teen rating.
Yeah. And this game came out in 2001. Now, by 2001, everybody but Jack Thompson was perfectly fine with violence and gore in first-person shooters, you know, especially after the big stink that Doom survived back in '93, and, you know, only then onwards to Quake, Duke, Blood, everything else. You know, Unreal...
You still had some holdouts from the Tipper Gore days, but, you know...
You know, Unreal had, you know, plenty of ways to... They had special animations for shooting someone's head off.
I mean, what year did Grand Theft Auto 3 come out? Like, that's not a first-person shooter, but just to sort of...
It's here on the screen.
Yeah, yep. But, you know, you've got, like, you mentioned Deus Ex came out a year, right? That's a first-person game, and it's not particularly gory. People do jib, though, in that game.
Yeah.
But it's...
Well, my point here is...
Yes.
So I said in the intro in episode 1 we weren't going to talk about StarCraft quite yet, and we're still not. But I'm going to use it right here because StarCraft is rated T, and take a look at these images showing up on screen, these clips of unit deaths, human unit deaths. People are exploding, being burned alive. It's plainly some of the stuff's just absolutely horrific if you really think about it. But StarCraft is rated T for teen. And it's far more violent than Halo. So I legitimately think, in a conspiratorial sort of way, so only a little bit ridiculous,
tinfoil hats on.
Yeah, absolutely. Make a tinfoil top hat. I legitimately think some part of me is saying Bungie pushed Microsoft, or Microsoft pushed Bungie, or someone pushed the ESRB.
Microsoft pushed Bungie,
someone pushed someone to give Halo an M rating because they knew it really wasn't that impressive, and they knew that that alluring M on the box would attract the kid crowd who wanted to play the adult games.
Hey man,
but at the same time, the parents would see it and they're like, "Yeah, that's fine," because this is basically family-friendly violence. It's against aliens. There's no fountains of blood spouting out from people's severed necks or anything.
The worst it gets is yet to come, but even that's relatively tame.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I'm not going to balk at the idea of putting an M rating on the box to attract kids. I was a dumb, impressionable kid. I bought or rented plenty of games just because they seemed mature and cool.
And I'm not going to try to say that kids playing M-rated games are a bad thing. I played Unreal Tournament at age 7. I'm just saying that there is an allure created by an M rating. And when you put it on a game like Halo that isn't actually that violent in any discernible way...
I mean, it certainly even just makes you more aware of the violence that is there, because it's there on the box. It's M-rated, so it must be violent.
Yeah.
Right?
But that's all I have to say about that. I'm not making that a big focus. It's just something I wanted to bring up because it's something I've always kind of thought about, even when I was playing it. in 2003.
I had never thought about it, but the first time my dear friend Reckon here brought it up to me, I was like, you know what? I buy into this. This 100% seems legit to me. Because, hey, it wouldn't be the first time a publisher has pushed for a more mature rating to, you know, sell their game. God of the War.
So...
what was that? Grand Theft Auto?
Here we have an interesting little thing. We're going backwards through this ship.
Yeah.
Surely that's a novel little inclusion that will never be repeated.
This is the last time we're gonna see this control room. I guarantee it.
Yup. Wave goodbye. We'll never go through a level backwards ever again.
Air support is cut off, Captain. We need to hold here until she can move in.
Oh man, we're trapped in here. We're screwed. We're screwed, man.
Shut the hell up,
Pick.
Pick.
Soldier, remember you're a leatherneck. Cortana, if you and the chief can get us into one of those Covenant dropships, I can fly us out of here.
Yes, Captain. There's a Covenant dropship still docked.
Yeah, we saw it earlier. Get ready for a point defense section.
Oh, protect Keys. He can actually die in this mission.
Yes, he can.
So we didn't call attention to it, but hey, we're doing an escort quest right now. If Keys dies, game over.
At least he's only mostly brainless.
Yeah. Honestly, he's a damn sight better than some of the Marines in this game.
Yep. Oh, hi.
They also had the foresight to give him a needler. So, you know, he can actually kind of help out. Kinda.
But my question remains, through all this, now that we're approaching the end, what the fuck are any of these hallways for? Where do they go? Where do the Covenant go to the bathroom? Where do they sleep? Where do they eat? Where do they have meetings? Is this a radio? Is this how they talk to each other? There's one right over here. That's a pretty fucking shortwave radio.
Well, I mean, we're right near the hangar, so this must be some sort of console to manage the... Oh, no, wait, there's one out here. Huh.
We walked through this entire hallway, and the only doors we saw were either locked or the ones that took us to more hallways. There's nothing that suggests entry into the rest of the ship.
Well, what's actually more interesting is that this is a much shorter walk to the hangar than we took before to get to the same bridge, right?
Yeah.
And hey, remember when I said in the supplementary material that the bridge is located in the heart of the ship, dead center?
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a little walk back, shall we?
Alright. Oops. Halo 1 is a little, strict with
Hey, wait a second.
its player tethers.
How big are these ships again?
Oh, well, yeah, it looked pretty big. Didn't it take us way longer to get here?
Yeah,
well, actually, that's because we had to go through a different set of hallways that led us on a merry chase, so we could fight more of the same 3 enemies. Halo 3 is already... Halo 3. Halo is already starting to show its cracks.
Yeah. And there's still some good to come. My favorite mission in the game is the next one, I believe. So we're getting there. But we're also rapidly approaching the point where the crunch applied to the game.
We're also
so anyway,
rapidly... We're also rapidly approaching a fairly lengthy video, so let's hit this console and try to sign off here.
Until next time.
We release the clamps.
That's it. The dropship is loose.
Everybody, mount up. Let's get on board.
Give me a minute to interface with the ship's controls.
No need. I'll take this bird out myself.
How do you know how to do that?
Captain, Hunter!
Well, in the supplementary material, they
A
use a steering yoke.
single line. A single line. Say, I trained in a simulation with these spirit dropships back at place.
Thanks
See
for
you next
watching.
time.